Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. We'll get started in just a few minutes. We're just waiting for people to log in, but thanks so much for attending today's session. As I said, give us a minute or two. We're just letting people get settled in, and then we'll go ahead and get started today with Julian Lee. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll get started soon. Bye-bye.
We used to use GoToMeeting before, so it's kind of like strange. I see the setup back again since we switched to Zoom, but it's a great product.
Yeah, it has worked out very well for us. It's easy for people to submit questions. It's easy for us to respond to them either electronically or to ask their questions, get them answered, and it's great for recordings and dropping it onto YouTube and all the other pieces that go with it. So it works out very well for us.
We're giving a plug to GoToMeeting. That's going to be weird. Good stuff. Well, I hope everybody is there ready to join, and we'll see how this goes.
Yeah, let's go ahead and get started.
All right.
First of all, thank you very much for attending today's Cyber Thought Leadership session. As you know, we do a couple of these each month. The Nodeware Advisory Council, a little over a year ago, asked us to start doing these as public service announcements, really to provide education and perspective both for MSPs and for end user executives, so they could find out the latest things that are going on around cybersecurity, things they could do to be better prepared, how MSPs can better support small businesses, and what are some of the things that small businesses need to do to better protect their data. And we are all about matching up small businesses with MSPs. We spend a significant amount of time in the matchmaking business, connecting small businesses that need, local assistance or assistance, with their cybersecurity issues, keeping their data safe, their data secure, as well as all the things you would expect around reliability, availability, and serviceability as it relates to your organization and business continuity and the like. All the things that MSPs do to make the life of the end user organizations so much easier, so much better, and what they rely on. So that's really what, today we're going to talk about that. That's what this whole session has been about. If we can go to the next slide for a second. Just to give you an example of some of the things we have coming up, we have Tony Sager from the Center for Internet Security on with us next week, talking specifically about frameworks and compliance trends facing SMB leaders. As you know, Tony's kind of one of the godfathers of frameworks and compliance, and is the author of most of the CIS information. So we're fortunate enough to have him with us. Feel free to register for that, submit any questions. And for all of our MSP partners, we're happy to provide custom registration links for you if you'd like to invite anybody. And then, as always, we give our partners the list of people that sign up to hear somebody like Tony on a session like that. We also have open demos and live demos and peer Q&A sessions. We have one that we do an open office hour for all the 7-figure MSP members. That's coming up on Friday. And then the following week, we have one that we do for everybody that's open to any MSP, as well as any end user that wants to see a demonstration of the product, wants to talk more features, functions, business uses, and the like. And we always have one of our MSP partners join us so the MSPs can ask one of their peers particular questions. So those are the things that are coming up. We're about to announce some Cyber Thought Leadership sessions for March as well. So go to our website, go to LinkedIn, participate in our community, and feel free to get started. So today, we're fortunate to have Julian Lee with us. Julian is the president of TechnoPlanet. I will let Julian talk about their mission and vision and what they've been up to for a number of decades. But I just wanted to thank Julian in advance for joining us today. They've had a significant impact on helping MSPs get started, building building the ecosystem for what MSPs can do to support end users and how end users can look to MSPs for assistance. He's got some exciting things that they're talking about that they're focused on and rolling out in 23. And before we get started with questions, I just wanted to turn over to Julian, kind of maybe give us a state of the state of where small businesses are, where critical data is, where attacks are, what MSPs are doing to be better prepared to support, more and more of those organizations that are coming to them for assistance, and how we can help match people up. So, Julian, with that, I'll turn it over to you. And before you get started, just remind everybody, we got a lot of questions submitted in advance. We got some on our LinkedIn page. If you have any questions, put them in the chat box, put them in the question box. We'll make sure we get to them. And we'll also get a recording out to everybody that we'll place on our YouTube channel for anybody that you want to show this to that wasn't able to join us today. Or for some reason, if you have to drop off in the middle, you can watch the recording of what you might have missed. So, Julian, with that, love to get your perspective.
Good stuff. Well, thank you for having me join you. And looks like some of the events you're doing is pretty cool. So I'll have to jump on and check out a couple. So I'm the publisher for eChannel News, and we do a lot of things in the industry around the channel, obviously, building ecosystems, working with vendors, MSPs, and so on. If you want to learn more, you can jump on at TechnoPlanet.com and click the About, and you'll see a 30-year history, a roadmap of what we've been up to. For this session, so cybersecurity. So this is the big thing for us and a big thing for the world, I believe, for a lot of reasons. We see, breaches almost every day. And the question is, how deep does it go and how wide does it go, right? And just to give you a kind of a rounding, round figures around the world, this industry is about a $60 billion industry in security. There's probably about 4,300 odd companies that are developing cybersecurity solutions, vendors, that is. About half of those have a channel program, and the other half is, I guess, hopefully scrambling to become a channel program company. The industry is going under about a 27% growth year over year. And if you look adding things like, IoT and those types of new technologies, it's probably going to be around 32%, right? The really cool thing is if you look at the whole industry today, the largest cybersecurity vendor only have about 2% market share. And that says a lot because the market is not really matured yet. It's still gearing up. $14 billion were invested in the cybersecurity businesses in 2022. And a lot of that was just Series A and B, startup type funding. So the market is sort of getting on fire. Typically, from an end customer perspective, they're playing with maybe 6 or 7 tech vendors, if you will, to help them figure out what they need. And if you really look at the whole globe, there's probably about 1 million people talking about cybersecurity every day. And that's out of like what, 8 billion or something. So it's a lot, but it's not a lot, if you know what I mean. And so channel partners need to figure out where they fit in this ecosystem. The big stats these days, and I don't know exactly how true the number is, but I've seen 92% is an end customer will change. 92% of end customers will change an MSP if they believe that the other MSP they're changing to is going to deliver a better cybersecurity posture for them. So number seems quite high, but in general, maybe the number is significant enough that it warrants MSPs to take a look at their own world and figure out how they do cybersecurity. Unfortunately, this is one of those things where you can't fake it till you make it, because faking it puts yourself at risk. So be careful there. Get it done right is really the bottom line. Marketplaces are also taking over a lot when it comes to cybersecurity because people are looking for consolidation. They're looking for the ability to go to one place and find what they need. And remember, cybersecurity is a never-ending journey. What was today's best practices may not be tomorrow. And from a MSP, MSSP perspective, what an opportunity. because you cannot have digital transformation without cybersecurity. And roughly speaking, for every $1 that someone buys in a license, there's about $10 worth of services you can wrap around. So if you stitch all that stuff together, if you are in the cybersecurity world, you are in the hot zone. This market continues to blow up, and it will continue to blow up. And I'm sure everybody's a little bit sad about hearing the word chat GPT again. It's everywhere. It's blowing up. But really, what it really boils down to for cybersecurity, I won't get into the points of what kids can do with their homework at school with chat GPT and so on. But for cybersecurity, it's a big impact for a lot of reasons. A, it's going to allow people to sound better. So the social engineering is going to be much better. So everything's going to be that much better. But I've been using this for a while. But what this is going to do, it's going to bring a lot more wannabe hackers who are sort of like, B, C, D players, right? To up their game, to look better, which means the amount of hackers that is going to be doing, the hacking, so to speak, is going to be a lot more sophistication. So before it was, you'd send out a hit to you got a million people, and you hope like, 0.0001% clicks on the thing. Now you could probably send out a million, and your hit rate's going to be much higher because of the social engineering aspects and the way ChatGPT is going to help you to articulate that. And so I'm not quite sure how all that stuff's going to pan out, but it seems to me that AI is a big game changer. And the way cybersecurity is going to have to push back is with more AI, if you will, and automation. So if there was two things that MSPs should be thinking about in how they can go to war, and this is like a war, it's got to be leveraging lots of AI and automation. And if you can get those two things right, maybe you're at the point when you can, not stop, but you could, get ahead of the curve and maybe push back a bit and protect yourselves and your customers a little bit better. So that's just my brief 10-mile high overview of the industry.
Well, Julian, before we move on, could you elaborate a little bit on that $1 adds to potentially $10? Are you talking about it from an MSP standpoint, from a end user standpoint? Could you just elaborate a little bit on that point?
Sure. I mean, look, so, most companies, when they sell their software, you don't make a lot of money with it, right? I mean, I think Salesforce, you can't even make money with selling Salesforce, right? So the thing there is that you sell the thing, the software, but then you wrap all the integration, the implementation, the management, the managed services around that. So it's before when you used to be able to sell a license, right? And you have like, thousands of licenses, and you get this check coming in every month, right, from the vendor. That is sort of dissipating, right? You see, and recently with Microsoft's new program where they're going to start rewarding partners based on what they're bringing to the table net new, right? And their skill sets and so on, not what you've done in the past. So that historic transactions that you did, and you worked very hard to get that, you might find that revenue is no longer going to be what it used to be previously. So moving forward, vendors and companies are going to want to look for partners who is able to wrap around a set of managed services around their technologies to help, make it more sticky, make it more effective, et cetera, et cetera. And the really cool news there, even though it's not nice that you lose the revenues from the past stuff you did, is that the vendors are investing heavily in MSPs who are able to do that. So the more you can wrap around cool services and integrations with their technologies, the more you will be rewarded. And I think net, you actually may be rewarded a lot more for that moving forward than you would just getting a percentage of the license, which was not very much in the in the past anyways, right? That's what
You
it
know,
meant.
it's interesting. We're seeing that today for, MSPs that used to use traditional vulnerability scanning tools that they would do, quarterly or Sunday nights or, monthly. They're now they're now implementing Nodeware for continuous vulnerability management during normal business hours because their clients are demanding their data stay protected, stay secured. And oh, by the way, if a new device shows up on their network, they want to know, and they want to be able to take advantage of that. They want to be able to pivot towards that. They want to do that very quickly. So it has become a big value add that our MSPs are selling, which is, the continuous vulnerability management not only protects your critical data, but it also immediately alerts you when somebody new comes on your network.
Well, I think it's pretty common now that we all know that cybersecurity protection is not a 9 to 5 job. As a matter of fact, most of the hacks happen in the weekend and starts at 5 o'clock at Friday because they know people are tired by then. They want to go home, check out the football game or whatever they want to do, right? So it's a bit of a challenge, and without a doubt, you need 24/7 monitoring, and that in lies the Achilles heel for MSPs because that is a big ask. I mean, the amount of effort that's required to do 24/7 monitoring is quite expensive, requires lots of humans to do it. And not to mention you have to be strong. I mean, there's a lot of burnout happening, right? How many humans can watch a screen 24/7, 365 before going a little bit AWOL, right? So we need to have better tools. We need to have better automation. We need to have smarter automation. We need to have better AI, and that should actually alleviate the burden on the MSPs to make them deliver a more, holistic 365, type monitoring, which is the goal, obviously.
One of the things I'm curious about, when I came to Nodeware about 18 months ago, we did a survey, and about 50% of the small business owners thought the bad guys would never find them. So they weren't terribly worried about it. Now that number is probably 10 to 15% of people still think the bad guys are never going to find them. But I think what's most interesting is, I hear from a lot of board members, a lot of angel investors, a lot of investment firms that are saying, if I'm going to put money into an organization or I'm going to sit on a board, I want to make sure that our data is protected, our company's protected, and I don't have any sort of liability to that. So I'm seeing more investors and board members, and whether it's VCs, private equity, friends and family, putting more pressure on small business executives to put the right systems in place. Are you seeing that?
Well, it's not just the investors. I mean, nobody wants to put money in a hole, right, where it can disappear, right? And cybersecurity breaches have that effect, right? It's a significant hit to the company, and it's in many cases it's not recoverable. And even when you do recover, it's not quite as what it was before. A lot of people are sort of getting that, but the insurance companies are getting into the game now. And if insurance companies decide that, wait a minute, you're not a risk that we want to insure, then you're not going to get insurance. And if you don't have insurance, like how do you, do business, right? So a lot of compliance issues are going to go around that. And these days, if you get hit once, believe me, insurance companies are going to look at you twice, and they may not even give you an insurance policy. So this is a monstrous challenge that all insurance companies are waking up. I would like to say it's more of like a sleeping giant. And once they get into the game, not just end customers are going to be, having problems with their insurance premiums going up, but MSP is going to have problems because they're going to have be insured and prove that they're properly insured right before they're doing managed services. And for those MSPs on the fringes that have a lot of cool things on their website that says we do cybersecurity management, and we take care of your breaches and all that really cool wording. Be careful, because in the courts system, that comes back to bite. So you've got to be very clear now what it is you do, so people are clear what they're signing. As a matter of fact, at one of our events we have coming up soon, we're going to have a lawyer there talking about contracts and why you need to make sure that that's right, because you might have a breach, or you might not even have a big breach, but that doesn't stop the lawsuits from coming, right? And you've got to stay out of the courts, you've got to stay out of the limelight, you've got to stay out of the public view, and a lot of that stuff, can damage a company. So I think there's a lot of forces, and of course, the other third one is the compliance from government, right? You're going to have to comply. If you have a breach, you have to declare it. Then the insurance company is going to make sure that you've got a certain minimum standard, or else you're not going to get insurance, or your premiums are going to be out of the roof, right? And of course, investors are going to be apprehensive in putting their money into something that they're not quite sure. Even mergers and acquisitions now is a challenge. So you're a really good company, you got a really strong cybersecurity practice, you want to buy another company. What's the cybersecurity posture of that company, all right, that you want to buy? I mean, you can't even acquire the company if that stuff is not under control, right? So if you're planning to sell, right, you definitely want to make sure you've got a really solid cybersecurity practice. So yeah, a lot of powerful forces going to make sure it's done.
To that point, as you build out these ecosystems for MSPs to go to market to support these business leaders, what do you think what are the owners and the presidents and CEOs of these MSPs, either, what are they doing well to approach these business leaders as partners, or what are some areas maybe they have some shortcomings that they need to address?
Well, I just want to say, before I say anything about that, is that we, being in the news media, we get to talk to thousands of smart companies who build cybersecurity solutions, and we get to see where the future is. We talk to different kind of hackers, and red hats and white hats and all the hats in between. And so we kind of and of course gazillions of MSPs and MSSPs and SOCs. And so we get to see these different perspectives, and we try to see where everybody is headed. And sometimes it looks, if you could visualize it, like a traffic jam. You know, people going left, people going right, people honking. It's like there's no orchestration between the bodies, right? And MSP owners, first thing they need to do is really take a step back from their company and really understand what they're doing. And I say that, with all the best intentions, and there are really, really good people out there who can help you with that type of stuff. There's folks like Juan Fernandez who do a lot of MSP type stuff. There's Mike Lee. You can lean on those types of people who've been through it, right? I just interviewed a few MSSPs you can check out on eChannel News. And so there are companies who've been through it before, and so they're actually willing, believe it or not, to share their secret sauce and their recipe. So if you really want to help, you don't have to go dream it or read some books and whatever. But you do want to get help to really put everything in perspective. So you do want to have a cybersecurity practice. The only question you need to ask yourself as a MSSP or MSP, do you build it in-house or do you outsource it? And building it in-house, you better, be able to hire the right people, have the necessary funding and tools to do that, or you outsource it until you can find a way to build it, right? Or you might just find that outsourcing is just better because you don't have to deal with the downside of that. You could focus on other things, right? So that's the big questions. Do I build or do I outsource? And that's why a lot of traditional SOCs are actually opening their doors to lots of MSPs. we're going to have a few at our event, and one of them, Highwire, they work with MSPs to help them solve the SOC problem, that 24/7 management. And they actually deliver complicated support. So they will actually go in with you as an MSP to the client and do the assessment, like a kind of a buddy call, so to speak, and come back and figure out how they can mesh what they do with what they have to solve the problem, right? And of course, they do kind of rev share things, and you can make some money with it, right? But there is help. You might not be able to do this one alone. And if I could put a short little plug here for our cybersecurity defense ecosystem. You'll hear a lot about it in 2023. We're launching it actually in February 16, which is coming up soon, but you can check it out. You can go to the IOTSA website, iotssa.com, and poke around. We're going to be launching this ecosystem, which is basically a village of everything you need as an MSP to solve this problem. It's not just the technology pieces, not just solutions, but all the humans, the training, the skills, the tools, the platforms to help you make sense of this. So what we did was we were literally building the village with all of these companies so MSPs can go in and find what they need. So there are companies that is out there trying to help solve the problem. And if you just kind of like open up a little bit, the help is there if you really want to figure out what to do, build it or outsource it.
So we got a question that just came in about, I still need to look at creating a cybersecurity culture for my MSP. Are there resources for helping people like me to create that culture?
It's a hard one because if you have people just don't care, the quiet workers and so on and so forth, right? It's a challenge. But I would suggest you start by reading a few books, and one of them that I like in particular is one by Sunil Yu. So it's called the Cyber Defense Matrix. It's $20 or something, and I think you can even download the electronic copy for free. But basically, get your team to read that, and so they can kind of understand how cybersecurity works. And Sunil has a really cool way of articulating it and presenting it in his book. And I was fortunate to have him at one of our events last year, and he was really able to make sense of it. So people will not gravitate, culture or not culture, if they don't understand what it is. They don't understand the why. So you need to kind of understand the why. People need to understand that if you fail at cyber, the business fails, right? Your customers fails, your revenue fails. So it's one of those things you just can't fail at, right? It's, in the great days, you could just sell your computer, right? A laptop, and, it comes back and it's got a black screen or whatever, it's not working. Well, no worries, swap it out. Here's another one, do something. But you can't do that with cyber. So once the damage is done, reversing it's crazy. And I will tell you that if you want a really good visualization of cybersecurity, the best one I've heard so far is left of boom and right of boom. Boom meaning when you actually are breached. So left of boom is all the things you need to do to prevent yourself from being breached. Got to be detecting stuff, preventing stuff, all that cool stuff, right? And then if the boom happens, well, you got to mediate, you got to recover, you got to figure what went wrong, you got to run some forensics. So seriously, you have to have a plan for left of boom and right of boom. You can't just say, oh my God, I'm just going to put all my eggs into the left of boom, so because I'm never going to be breached. And then what happens when you do get breached? What do? Right? So if you don't have a left of boom and a right of boom playbook, you're half baked, right?
Yep.
So just make sure you have both of those components. But that's the best analogy that I've actually taken away, that I believe that can help me visualize how I look at cybersecurity in general. And the other component I want to mention with Sunil that's really valuable to me and maybe to the MSPs is that, you know, you can have an unlimited budget in cybersecurity and still get breached. We've seen this every day, right? So if you've got an unlimited budget and you can put every single layer of the protection you can possibly think about, why are we still getting breached, right? And the answer is, it's pretty simple. Complexity. Complexity opens a door because you've got so many moving parts to be thinking about. So you really got to look at the whole stack that you have and make sure you're not overly complicating it because it's very difficult. So, stories that I've heard, you've got big companies, right, that's got, 82 levels of technologies. And, Jane and Frank got fired or left the job. And they're responsible for dashboard number 42, 23, and 36. And nobody cared to replace them. So they've got those dashboards that's not even being monitored. That is a potential breach as you expand and get very complicated.
It's funny, I spent a lot of time, prior to joining Nodeware with the Fortune 2000 and the Fortune 1000 global CISOs, collaborating with them, working with them on a lot of different things, because none of them had enough, skills, expertise, and people, quite frankly, to solve all the problems that were coming at them. So they leveraged a lot of things together. But, those Fortune 1000 used to say, we have one of everything in our incubator that we try. And as a vendor, if you're going to come to me with a proposal, the first thing you better do is tell me what 3 vendors I could remove if I bring in your product, because I got too much complexity. I got too many pieces, and I need to get it to a cleaner, simpler look. It's kind of interesting because by contrast, the MSPs need to figure out a few simple things, training, education, dual factor, continuous vulnerability management to help these businesses get started on the path to cyber hygiene. I wonder if you want to comment at all about the simplicity of getting started from an MSP standpoint, and then the influence they can have on the business leaders to assist them.
Well, there's about 30 things that you have to do to fill the cybersecurity problem, right? That we know of. There's probably going to be 32 by tomorrow. I don't know. But right now, there's around roughly 30. And the first challenge with the 4,000 vendors that's out there on planet Earth is matching them up to which specific thing that they actually do. Not what they say they do, but what they actually do. So there's a lot of complexities in the communications from vendors out there, and everybody says that they're do this, they do great, blah, blah, blah. But do they really, really do it? So you got to look at the language. Do they say they work with? Are they integrated with? Are they supporting something? And these words doesn't mean that they actually do it, right? So you really need to strip away the fog to know exactly what they do, and then start identifying the vendors in which specific bucket that they solve and the problem that they solve. That's actually what we're doing with the cybersecurity defense ecosystem, is taking the madness down to more, CISO approved and vetted solutions, because that's a big problem. So if you listen to the sales pitches, you may be going in the wrong direction. You may think something is doing it, but it is not. So you do need to be conscious, right, of the complexities, and it is not easy. I'll tell you, there's so much pressure out there from companies to sell their solutions because of the investments that is getting into this industry, that you do have to be careful and filter the sales pitch from everything else. So be cautiously optimistic.
It's interesting you mentioned that. We just rolled out this deep scan capability that for every vulnerability that's found, it identifies, a couple of the links to vulnerabilities to help solve the problem. And we had one of our MSPs tell us that they spend about 15 minutes per day per vulnerability researching it. And just by putting this little piece of information in our dashboard against each vulnerability, it was saving them, 15 minutes per vulnerability, which was, for 5 a day, you're talking about an hour and 15 minutes. It was, turned out to be over 5 hours for the week, turned out to be, $40,000 to $60,000 on an annual basis. And to me, what was fascinating was it wasn't so much that anybody said, boy, I would love to be able to get that $40,000 to $60,000 savings. What was fascinating to me is they said, we're spending a lot more than 15 minutes researching a vulnerability. I wish we only spent 15 minutes. And then I wish your deep scan, links reduced it by 15 minutes, but they're spending a significant amount of time researching, which gets back to skills and staffing and education and training of the vulnerabilities to keep up. Any thoughts on that and kind of what some
Well, you
people
said
can
it's
do?
automation. That's the answer, right? You cannot do this manually, right? You just can't, right? I mean, good luck. If you found a way to do this manually, you've got some super, humans working for you, great. But you gotta rely on automation. You know, the human factor. Yesterday, I was interviewing a company who was a leader in threat detection from uh, emails, but also things like SMS messages and all the ways people are hitting you these days, right? And and he said something that I kind of pushed back on, and I said, you know, he doesn't think that all the education in the world to get the end users um, to be smart about phishing attacks. He said it's never going to work. Like you could educate them all you want, it'll never work. But I don't subscribe to that. But at least it's going to reduce, right, the amount of attacks that comes through by a better educated employee base. But his mission is to change the way the technology is filtering these attacks so that the human can go about doing what the human does. And then the automation and the AI, their job is to improve and reduce these threats before it happens. And he throws some really interesting statistics that he's doing, 70% more filtering than the best companies out there. So I think that's sort of where the trend is in prevention. How do we stop these threats coming in from all these different angles before the human just clicks on it? Because if we leave it down to the weakest link, right, then we're really gonna have a problem, right? So we do have to remove that the weak links as best we can by educating everybody, but we have to make sure tools are in place that when that weak link does click on something, it's not for naught. So that's it's not an easy challenge, that's for sure.
So to that point, um, how do MSPs go about finding the right people to help them?
You know, right now there's a 2.5 million shortage of professional cybersecurity gods, right? That's required. I know of stocks that's within my driving distance that has 60 job openings right now for cybersecurity professionals. So the cost of talent is very, very difficult, expensive, and hard to find and hard to keep. As a matter of fact, we have an interesting perspective from a company called Point Group. I forget the name of the exact company, but anyways, they'll be talking at the event about hiring and retaining talent. And the strength of any company is obviously they're humans, right? They're people. And so hiring and retaining the right people is a requirement. And you just can't just hire and hope for the best. And because there's such a demand, the employees are in the driver's seat to a large degree. Depends on the industry, of course, but they're in the driver's seat. So you have to reach down and figure out exactly what you're going to do to bring them into your circle, if you will, and make them happy. right? And a couple of things that we are seeing to help in the retention area is one, sharing the profits. Two, giving them more automation so they're not just constantly working themselves to death, right? Allowing them flex time to go work outside, inside type thing, bringing more purpose to them. And one of the interesting things about bringing purpose to a cybersecurity company is I believe that the cybersecurity channel community is the front lines of the war that is going to rage for the next foreseeable future. And you have a very important role to play because A, you're protecting yourself, your family. B, you're protecting your company, your employment. C, you're protecting the customers. And larger than that, you're protecting the economy. So I don't know what's more important than that. I mean, last few years, MSPs were called essential workers, and we weren't doctors or nurses, right? And that's because obviously the channel community kept the lights on with companies, right? It kept people communicating with virtual stuff and all that things, right? And I've heard all the stories about what MSPs need to do to keep those lights on, and dressing in PPP gear and going in there at 3 o'clock in the morning so there's nobody in, and getting those things swapped out was not easy. So I know the channel community is ready to stand up to the challenge. They know what they got to do. They'll figure this out. What they need is support. What they need is the right tools. They need less BS, so they need the proper guidance, and they need to come together as a community to fight this battle. And one of the things that I would suggest that every MSP do, regardless if they do with us or not, is join a peer group. I just cannot explain why this is the most important thing that MSPs can do in their life, but join a peer group of about 8 other companies or 7 other companies for a peer group of 8. Learn how it works and lean on each other. It is amazing what happens when you put 8 companies in a room that doesn't really hate each other and can leverage each other. They can all help each other become better. And what we find when we see outcomes of peer groups is 30% growth year over year just from their leaning and collaborating on each other. There's always someone in the group who has an answer for something that you're looking for. And if they don't, collectively, they could probably know somebody who does. So join a peer group, man. It's going to give you a really great roadmap.
I was at the conference a couple of weeks ago, the 7-figure MSP conference, where they're all members of that group. They all come together to talk about how do they grow their business, how do they increase their percentage of cybersecurity services solutions against their IT clients and their desktop clients, to make sure they're doing a better job being a better partner. And you see that collaboration. There's a lot of those organizations out there, but Chris and his team, I think, do a wonderful job. And just talking to those members about how that worked and how that worked together, seemed like they have great synergy and a great ability to kind of come together to solve a common problem without really being concerned about being competitors in the marketplace.
Totally. You need and peer groups go beyond. A peer group actually works independently. They work together whenever they want. They can have a virtual meeting 24/7. They could meet at a restaurant. They could meet at a ball game. It doesn't matter. They're constantly leaning on each other. Once a framework is set up that they can help each other, get the right education and the solutions and all that stuff, they become friends. They connect together deeper, and they own the agenda, right? They move forward. You need to let them run, all right? At some point, you give them a framework and you let them run, and they got this. We've seen it time and time out. I had one. Um, I was bringing this example. One of the members of a peer group comes out, went into a session, comes out of the session. He got an idea from one of the other people about how to solve a problem with one of their customers. So he goes, well, damn, I'm going to try this right now. He's on his phone, right out of the room, calls the client, lays it into him, and then, a few minutes after, his jaw drops and go, you got to be kidding me. I just learned that and I tried it and it worked. And he was dumbfounded. We was like, yeah, but that's kind of like normal, right? But in reality, until you experience it, you kind of you're very skeptical. And I think maybe MSPs need to be less skeptical and be a little bit more open to experience these things, whether regardless of the events they go to, right? All events have value, right? Sometimes it's a waste of time, but a lot of them, if you really work it, you can get really good value from what they're doing, and all these different types of peer groups and all these different experts. They all have something of value to share.
It's interesting. When I joined IGI had been in the IT and cyber consulting services business for a long, long time. And in fact, they built Nodeware 5, 6 years ago because they were tired of using some of the vulnerability management tools that could only run on nights and weekends when nobody was in the office. And they built Nodeware. They got a patent, around normal business hour usage, with little to no network degradation. But we've really focused on keeping the software side of the Nodeware business separate and distinct from the services businesses, because we didn't want our MSP partners to be concerned that we were going to try and, come after their business, if you will, with services. But now, as they're moving into vCISO, as they're doing more incident responses, they're doing more pen testing, they're now asking us, can you help me? Can you provide some capability for me when my people are fully utilized and I don't have a bench of skills? Can you help augment some of that? So it's an interesting path that we walk, where I had a very, I would say big, thick wall for the first year, where I didn't want the MSPs to even be concerned about any of those things on the other side of our business. But as their business morphs, they need that assistance.
The lines are blurring for sure, and it's all depends on how you partner. If you partner and you think of channel partners or MSPs as a customer acquisition cost, you will lose. If you think of them as a partner, a go-to-market partner to go to the clients, you will win. One thing that everybody, vendors, distributors, MSPs need to understand in their blood today is that the retention of the customer is really where the job starts.
Right.
But selling it, the transaction, that's the easy part, really. It's the retention, keeping them. Today, pretty much most SaaS solutions, you can sunset them within 3 to 6 months, and you could, spin one up in short time. And most of the SaaS companies that's out there, they put this in their upfront literature. We will help you to spin down and spin up. We'll help you to migrate. We'll help you to do this. And they do this for free.
Yep.
So they understand switching clients over from SaaS A to SaaS B is really, a good thing. But keeping them is critical. So if you are able to keep your client because you're delivering value, you're demonstrating your value, you're improving your value constantly, then you don't have to worry about sunsetting, because no one will change if it's going good, right? So you need to be thinking about sunset and sunrise of products, and it's all about the retention aspects of it. And I just want to say, retention is not just making sure the credit card goes through every month, for the license fees. That's just logistics, right? Retention is, what are you doing every single month? And I don't say once a month, but as often as you can, to ensure that your customers are being serviced well, understand what you're doing, and you're taking care of business. I just spoke to an MSP who implemented quite a bit of automation, And because of that, his team, his very expensive team, have lots of time to chit around and do whatever they do. And what he found was they would start to pick up the phone and call the customer and say, "Hey, Jane, um, just want to check out how you guys doing over there, whatever." It's, wait, we don't have a ticket, we don't have a problem, nothing's going on. What's happening? No, just calling you, man. Everything is good, all cleaned up. We took care of that problem yesterday. And what are they noticing? Well, you can't get better customer retention and stickiness than that, right? So this is what the MSP needs to be doing more of, is focusing on that stickiness, how they can expand that revenue around those dollars, and keeping the customers. That, my friend, is what the vendor is not very good at.
Got it. No, that's great insights. And and the reality is, as these small businesses, the leaders and the investors, and whether it's the cyber insurance companies to get renewals, or whether it's new compliance or new frameworks like we're going to talk about with Tony, next week, it's all about how do you support that client. And if you don't support that client, the other MSP down the road is going to come offer to support that client. So if you're not in front of the opportunity, you're going to lose the relationships you have, to your point, if you're not touching base with them and if you're not aligned with their business needs and objectives.
Totally. I mean, it's funny is as we go into this technology world, we all really realizing that it's a P2P world, it's a people world, and the folks who understand how to keep the people is important. Funny enough, we have a gentleman by the name of Shane Gibson, and he's a sales training god, right? And anyways, he created a new sales training course just for cybersecurity sales reps called Selling Risks. And you take this 6-hour course, and it just propels your sales skills to the next level. And he has a way of showing you what traditional old school skills that you must maintain, those P2P skills, and then how do you intermingle that with digital skills. And the success of a top salesperson moving forward is how they blend the digital aspects with their personal aspects. And you do that right, you win. Again, these are people out there that's solving the problem, and all we're doing is shining a light on them.
No, I think you make a great point. Look, we just have a couple of minutes. I want to remind everybody we've got a couple of upcoming sessions, and then I will give it back to Julian for some kind of closing remarks. As I mentioned, Tony Sager, the godfather of frameworks and compliance, will be on with us on the 16th. We're excited to hear what he has to say about what CIS is up to and how it fits with some of the other conversations around HIPAA and NIST and some of the other pieces. 7-figure MSP members, we've got the office hour session coming up on the 17th, and then a live demo that we have for anyone that's interested in seeing or hearing about Nodeware, or talking to one of our MSPs about how they deploy continuous vulnerability management and how they've transitioned, from monthly scans, quarterly scans, and Sunday night scans to continuous monitoring, the value they're getting, and the reactions from their end user clients. So those are the things that are coming up. As always, if you have somebody that you think would be a great speaker for our Cyber Thought Leadership session like today, these are public service announcements, as I said, please let us know. Please nominate those people. For our MSP partners, if there's somebody that you'd like to see us get on the schedule, and you'd like to take advantage of the custom registration links to invite your networks, invite your prospects, to let them hear from somebody like Tony, we make that available to all our partners. And we also, look for the opportunities to help you educate your prospects, your clients as well. So with that, Julian, let me kind of turn it back to you. couple of closing remarks. I know you can talk a little bit about the ecosystem that you're building, maybe a little bit about what you're going to announce coming up, but we got a couple of minutes and then we'll wrap at the top of the hour.
Uh, Perfect. So, well, I was going to say, well, our event is actually on February 16th and 17th, so that would conflict with your event. But we're in person, so if you're in the Phoenix area, you're welcome to jump in and check it all out. The website is iotssa.com, and you can get all the information. We have 5 events, by the way, across the U.S. in 2023. So if you missed that one, no worries. There's always another one. And
Julian, on that, Julian, just let me make one point. I
sure.
always commit that if you put a question on LinkedIn or you put it in GoToWebinar or you send it to us, we will make sure we ask your question. We'll get the answer, we'll get the recording, and we'll have it up on our YouTube link. So if nobody attends live, we're committed to asking every question, getting the recording, and getting it out distributed to people. Just so
Good
you can
stuff.
attend the event and submit questions at the same time.
Good stuff. Excellent. So, congratulations on what you guys are doing. This is the kind of stuff that the channel needs, right? Obviously, the need support, right? This is a community. Not everybody's an island, right? And it's going to take a village to solve this problem. And what you guys are doing is great. And what we're doing is helping the community as well. And right now, you might not have heard of the cybersecurity defense ecosystem because we're launching it February 16th. But I would say keep an eye on it. It is going to literally become something that is going to help you 365 days a year. We've already got about 3,000 members in the MSP community, and that's going to grow tremendously. So join us, listen to us, and if you want to learn about the news, of course, echannelnews.com, we got you covered. That's all for me.
Julian, thanks so much. As always, thanks for everybody who logged in today. Thanks for the questions that you submitted. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. We're happy to provide you, any sort of demonstration, any sort of proof of concept that you're interested in. We are also matchmaking end users up. So if you're an end user, if you're a leader or a board member or an investor, or an employee in an organization and you're worried about your cybersecurity and your data, let us know. We will match you up with one of our MSP partners and help get you started, get you assistance. So as always, thanks everybody for your time today. If you know somebody that you'd like to have speak on our next event or one of our events coming up, let us know. We'd be happy to host them on our Cybersecurity Thought Leadership Series. And Julian, thanks so much for your time today. Really appreciate your insights and your perspective. And we're excited to see the defense program that you roll out next week. So
Hope it
with
helps.
that, with everybody, thank you so much. And we'll look forward to seeing you on our next session. Have a great rest of your morning or afternoon, depending upon where you're located. And as always, if you have questions, submit them and we will make sure they get on the recording. We'll get the link to our YouTube channel out to everyone as well. Thank you very much and have a great day.
Cheers.